I now call Ruth Maguire to speak to Amendment 93 and other amendments of the group. Ms Maguire.
Thank you, Presiding Officer. Consent, choice, free will and autonomy, these are principles which should exist in all our lives, but they're not experienced equally by all, and they're not something that the estimated 1 in 3 Scottish women living with domestic abuse and coercive control are likely to recognise in their lives at all. The amendments in this group see that reality and take seriously the real danger of coercion. My Amendment 93 is an attempt to strengthen safeguarding at the point of the second declaration. It recognises that coercion may be direct, indirect or internal and requires each to be actively considered. I just want to acknowledge what Michael Mara said and be honest with Chamber. I'm not entirely convinced we can legislate to protect people against coercion, but like everyone in this group, these are my attempts. The first point I wish to make is about safeguarding. Hearing something described as containing safeguards, containing robust safeguards, can go a long way to providing reassurance. But when the stakes are as high as they are in this bill, it warrants further interrogation. Any so-called safeguards, are statements about what should happen in an ideal world to protect people from harm. But I think we'd all acknowledge the real world stresses and pressures of clinical practice that face our medics. Members will understand the impact of a terminal illness diagnosis, and the family dynamics all around that are not always ideal. This Parliament brought forward groundbreaking domestic abuse legislation and is well versed in the complexities around coercion and patterns of behaviour that make it so. And given that, everyone in this chamber should understand 3 things very clearly. Just how far from operating in an ideal world a woman being coercively controlled by her partner is. The challenge in gathering evidence of coercion, even for experts. And therefore, just how limited any safeguards put in place can be for these women. Now, we know women being abused by their partners are at serious risk of being killed and of dying by suicide as a result of domestic abuse. Michael Mara mentioned Kimberly Milne from Dundee. We also know that domestic abuse does not end with a diagnosis of illness or with disability or with older age. Those intending to vote for this bill should be very, very clear about what level of risk they're willing to accept to meet the aim of legislating to allow some to end their life early. I'm not confident that we can prevent coercion even if all the amendments in this section pass. And that's not about putting it in the too difficult pile. There's nothing that we should ever put in the too difficult pile. But sometimes there are things that should be in the too dangerous pile. I strongly agree with experts Dr Annie Donaldson and Isabel Kerr. The truth is that for some women, the danger that this legislation becomes another lethal tool to be wielded by an abusive partner is real. The deadly consequences for those women would be final, and that's not a risk that I'd be willing to take, Presiding Officer.